Hey guys, it's Stacy Rogers, candidate for governor, and I'm going to give you just a few points tonight, rebuttal on what was done in the debates. It's kind of not going to be a full. I don't want to have a 2 hour long rebuttal here, but I do want to talk about a few things that stuck out to me in the debate process and what was said and how it was talked about. And the first one is how very surface everything was. And one of the things that, when we look at the issues of what is going on in this state, is it's all very just scratching the surface of saying, we're going to fix this. But we're not really identifying, we're treating the symptom of the issue and not the root of the problem. So some of you know I spent 15 years in pharmacy, and I was a technician. I was not a pharmacist, so I'm going to be very clear about that. But in that 15 years, I would, pull pharmacists aside and I would ask them, I'd pull the little white packet off the bottle and we'd unfold, and it's got all the information about the medications, all the side effects, all the molecular structure of it. And I would sit there and talk to them about, how, whether this drug crosses the blood-brain barrier, how it interacts with other medications, what the effects are, and I am not a fan of big pharma. I am not in at all. I think that most medications are simply treating the symptom of the real problem. And if we get to the root of the problem, then it has the ripple effect of fixing all of the issues, and you don't have to take the medication. Now, there are life-saving medications, so please don't get me wrong on that topic of pharmacy. Real quick, I just want to make sure you know that there are obviously some life-saving medications, but when we are talking about treating symptoms of an issue, that's what I'm talking about. So you can apply this also in the issues that we have in the state. And so when you are looking at education and you say, well, if we change curriculum, that's going to take care of that, or we take cell phones out of schools or tablets out of schools or whatever. Those are simply the symptoms to the issue. That is not actually going to solve the issue. We have to go much deeper than that and look at the root causes of why education, particularly public education, is failing in this state, why we rank so low in outcomes, and why we are spending so much and not getting the desired return on investment, which is having educated kids leaving the school system ready to be productive citizens in our communities. So what happens with a lot of these candidates that I've seen, and a lot of politicians in general, is they want to talk about these surface level issues without addressing those. So when we talk about that, what are the underlying issues that are the root cause? Well, we have to look at, let's take education for example. It goes far beyond the school day. You have to look at things like what children are putting in their bodies as fuel for the school day. You have to look at what is happening in their home. Do they have parents that are present or able to be present? And I'm not knocking any parent here, but what I'm saying is, if a mom and a dad are working 2 and 3 jobs, and they're stressed about putting food on the table, and they're stressed about whether they're going to be able to pay for the bills and pay for all the things that they have to pay for within the school system, are they able to be as engaged with their children as they need to be? And so there's another layer. Our foster care system, putting children into the foster care system and not providing them with adequate resources to get the help they need. And that could be as simple as we're not giving resources to the foster parents. We're separating families that shouldn't be separated, and we're giving children back to families that shouldn't be given back to. and all of those other issues that are currently residing in our foster care system. And then we're sending those children to schools. And so even if you have fully functioning children that have no problem in school, when you enter and place children that are struggling in that same environment, you will cause an issue there. So there's another issue. There are lots of things that feed into why our education system is not currently functioning properly. And it boils down to we have to address those underlying issues in order to see better outcomes. And so that's not an easy thing. And I'm not saying I have all the answers today, but those are the conversations that I am having with people about how do we address those root causes of why education is not working. Why kids are not being more successful, why are teachers stressed out, why are parents not more engaged, why, and it goes far, far beyond the school day. So that's one point. There was some talk about marijuana legalization, and I've talked on this topic before, and what I will say again, I'll reiterate, this is not a question again of whether it's going to be legalized at some point. It is a question of when it will be legalized, and are we prepared for it as a state? And the answer to that is absolutely not. We have not prepared infrastructure wise to prepare for that day when it is legalized in the state of Kansas, either on a national level or on a state level. And we are simply one decision away from either a governor making that decision or a president making that decision. And we have to understand that we need to be prepared for it. So I'll reiterate again that when it was taken from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3, what that did was open the doors for the research that needs to go into how to safely get that drug out without it landing into the wrong hands, with that medication to be successful for the right people and for it to be done safely. So I am not an advocate for marijuana legalization. I want to be very clear on that. But I am an advocate for making sure that in the event of when it is legalized, that it is absolutely the safest as possible it can be. Being on the line of an absolute no and putting on the blinders that this is not coming for us is absolutely the wrong way to be addressing the situation. In addition, there's a lot of pushback from alcohol and from other areas in the state that say we don't want this because it will cut into our revenue and it will be detrimental to us. And those are big donors to campaigns of other politicians. So you have to be aware of those dynamics as well. Let's talk about what nobody talked about today when they talked about wind and solar energy. None of them touched on the fact that energy is an infrastructure issue. And we are under attack in this state currently with solar projects and battery storage facility projects. There's almost one per county being proposed right now. And it is not a matter of are they going to get them all approved. We're working on that to, there are counties that are issuing moratoriums. There are cities and counties that are saying absolute no. But the problem is that there's so many being introduced that I believe the tactic is to spread the resources so thin that we cannot possibly go against all of them at the same time. So they know that not all of them will get through, but some will and have. So we are definitely under attack by these companies. And why is the state not doing more? Not doing more to protect the citizens, the landowners, the cities, and the counties from this infiltration. And the answer to that is always power and money. If energy, we can agree, is an infrastructure issue, and the state is in charge of infrastructure issues, My question to you is, and this is not a question of whether you have the right to do something with your property. If you want to do something with your property, I get it, and that's your right. However, the state should be overseeing those contracts for your protection to make sure that you understand what's in those contracts and that you are not being taken advantage of. Now, would I trust our current administration to do that, to actually oversee? Well, they're clearly not. But would I trust that they were going to accurately oversee those contracts and ensure the safety? No, I do not currently. But that is what needs to happen in order to make sure that our citizens are not taken advantage of and harmed. So nobody talked about that. And I, of course, have said publicly that I would want to have a statewide moratorium on wind, solar, and battery storage facilities. And I will go ahead and add in the data centers, because those, again, when we already have one per county being proposed just on solar and battery storage, that is before we even add in those data centers and any wind energy as well. So no one addressed that tonight in that manner. They just said, oh, we don't like that. It shouldn't be subsidized. It shouldn't be, this, that. But they didn't actually address the underlying issue, which is the state should be overseeing this in a different way, a better way that is actually protecting our citizens. That is not being done currently at all. Those are three big topics that I saw. I need to go back and watch it again and pick up a couple more. There's always property tax, there's the education question, but there are so many topics that they did not even touch tonight that I think are great concern and the real root issues of what is going wrong in this state. So I hope that helps you a little bit. I didn't want to go too much longer on my stances. I hope that helps you understand where I'm at on some of these things. I don't believe in blanket legislation. I believe that we should be looking at each area of the state and addressing their specific concerns, and that will have to be with a collaboration with those communities. I do not believe that the state needs to lord over and try to make determinations that it will affect every citizen of the state that may actually harm in one area and benefit another. So again, going into the communities and talking about what their specific needs are from the state is the correct approach. And again, I am under no illusion that this would be an easy task, a small task. In fact, it will be a very large one, but it is a necessary one. And finally, having traveled the state as extensively as I have and spoken to more people than any other candidate in this race and walked into more city offices and talked with cities, what I've realized is that there is nothing uniform throughout this state to help cities and counties determine not only their budget, but understand what resources are available to them to help them in their cities create a flourishing city. So we have cities out there, towns that are dying because they don't have infrastructure, the correct infrastructure in place. They don't understand about ordinances. They don't understand what tools are available to them for growth. And we need to create something that will educate and help those council members and those mayors coming in, those city officials that are regular citizens in these towns, have the resources easily available to them to make better decisions for their communities so that we can have a prosperous Kansas and a growing Kansas. And by the way, growth does not come from outside of the state. Growth, true economic growth, comes from empowering our people to know that they can be the ones that create businesses in their area, and we're not going to penalize them for doing it. So there's a lot of red tape that can be cut, a lot of things that can be streamlined and make business easier in this state, and that is also something I intend to do. So we're right here at 15 minutes. I hope that this helps you understand a little bit more of my positions in as I run for governor. And even though you didn't get to see me in the debate, that's okay, because I don't pay to play. I am working here for the citizens of this state. And I want to make sure that your questions are answered and that your voice is heard first and foremost. Have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you soon, and God bless.